US FDA compliance for British, Irish, and Australian companies. The United States is the United Kingdom's largest trading partner. However, in 2025, the impact of newly imposed US reciprocal tariffs on imports from the United Kingdom has been felt. UK goods exports to the US were 13.5% lower than a year earlier. Exports included $8.9 billion of medicinal and pharmaceutical products. Despite recent declines, the sector is the second largest UK goods export in terms of value, $33.69 billion. In early 2025, data showed spikes, 210.5% increase, many of them driven by pharmaceutical or chemical exports from Ireland to the United States, possibly stockpiling ahead of tariff risk. Because a large portion of Irish exports to the US are pharmaceuticals and chemicals including vaccines, packaged drugs, OTC and prescription, and hormones, driven by the presence of major pharmaceutical companies in Ireland, any adverse US tariffs actions or import restrictions can influence business decisions, such as sourcing and pricing strategies. Australia already has a free trade agreement, FTA, which provides preferential trade access for meat and edible meat offal, primarily high-quality beef and lamb, pharmaceutical products, vaccines and biopharma, optical, medical, and surgical instruments. U.S. new broad tariff policies could still cause market distortions, leading to higher costs for Australian exports, especially in sectors outside the FTA's full coverage. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, has specific registration and compliance requirements for foreign companies, including those from the UK, Ireland, and Australia, that manufacture, process, pack, or hold regulated products for export to the United States. The requirements vary significantly depending on the product category: food, drugs, medical devices, or cosmetics. Here is an overview. General requirements for British, Irish, and Australian companies. Establishment registration. Register the facility with the FDA. This is typically required for facilities that manufacture, process, pack, or hold food, drugs, or medical devices. This registration must often be renewed biennially or annually. Product listing. List all products intended for commercial distribution in the U.S. agent. Designate a U.S. agent. This individual or company must be a resident of the U.S. or maintain a place of business in the U.S. and is responsible for communicating with the FDA on the foreign establishment's behalf regarding the registration, compliance with quality or manufacturing regulations, adhere to the relevant U.S. regulations for quality systems, manufacturing practices, and labeling. Food facilities must comply with the Food Safety Modernization Act, FSMA, which includes requirements like hazard analysis and risk-based preventive controls, RPC. Drugs. Companies must comply with current good manufacturing practices, CGMP. Medical devices. Companies must comply with the Quality System, QS, regulation, often aligned with international standards like ISO 13485. Inspections. Foreign facilities are subject to FDA inspection. Failure to allow an inspection can result in the product being detained or rejected upon entry into the U.S. U.S. agent requirement. British, Irish, and Australian companies exporting to the United States must identify an FDA U.S. agent during the registration process. After a facility or establishment submits a registration, FDA will verify that the person or entity identified as the U.S. agent, such as ITB Holdings LLC, has agreed to serve. The FDA sends a confirmation notification of a British, Irish, or Australian company facility registration to the U.S. agent to ensure that the U.S. agent is aware of the connection. The agency will not confirm any registration or provide the facility with a registration number until the U.S. agent's confirmation within 30 days. If the U.S. agent wishes to no longer serve the already registered facility, the company will have 60 calendar days to update its registration with a new U.S. agent. Ready to switch U.S. agent? October 1st through December 31st each year is the best time frame. However, that can happen anytime. Time zones around the world are usually challenging. U.S. agents' working hours can make a difference. Email exchanges are great when responses are provided the same day. But additional instant and 24/7 live support chat is much better. Medical devices. Medical device manufacturers from the UK, Ireland, and Australia must meet the following requirements. Establishment registration, required annually for foreign manufacturers, sterilizers, repackers. Device listing, listing of all devices manufactured or processed for commercial distribution in the United States. U.S. agent. Mandatory. Acts as a liaison between the FDA and the foreign firm. Pre-market submission. Depends on the device's risk classification, Class 1, 2, or 3s. Pre-market notification, 510K. Most common for Class 2. Pre-market approval, PMA. Required for most Class 3, high-risk devices. De novo classification, for novel, low to moderate risk devices. Quality System QS regulation. Compliance with current good manufacturing practices for medical devices. The FDA is moving towards incorporating ISO 13485 into its regulations. Quality Management System Regulation, QMSR Final Rule. Medical Device Reporting, MDR. Requirements for reporting adverse events or malfunctions to the FDA. The Modernization of Cosmetics Regulation Act, MOCRA, significantly expands FDA's rulemaking and enforcement authority over cosmetics, and creates substantial new compliance obligations for manufacturers, packers, and distributors of cosmetics intended for sale in the United States. So, what's new? MOCRA requires any facility that manufactures or processes cosmetic products intended for sale in the United States to register with FDA. Requires manufacturers, packers, and distributors of cosmetics intended for sale in the United States to submit to FDA lists of products and ingredient information, including location of manufacture and the ingredients of any fragrances or flavors. Imposes greater record-keeping obligations regarding product safety and reporting, documenting, and following up on serious adverse events with an expanded definition of what constitutes a serious adverse event. New labeling requirements, including providing contact information for adverse event reporting and notifications for products intended for professional use. Good manufacturing practices, GMP, the identification of fragrance allergens that must be disclosed on cosmetics labels, and standardized testing methods for detecting and identifying asbestos in talc-containing products. FDA has now the mandatory recall authority if it determines that there is a reasonable probability that cosmetics are adulterated or misbranded, or exposure will cause serious adverse health consequences. The agency may access records pertaining to product safety and request a list of ingredients in the fragrances or flavors. Finally, a responsible person is required to report serious adverse events associated with the use of cosmetic products to the FDA within 15 business days after receiving the report. Food and beverages, food facility registration, register every 2 years between October 1st and December 31st of even-numbered years, 2026, 2028, 2030. U.S. agent, mandatory. FSMA compliance. Comply with relevant rules under the Food Safety Modernization Act. FSMA. Preventive controls for human or animal food. Establish and implement a food safety system that includes an analysis of hazards and risk-based preventive controls. Foreign Supplier Verification Program, FSVP. U.S. importers are generally required to perform risk-based activities to verify that imported food meets U.S. safety standards. While this is primarily an importer requirement, the foreign supplier must cooperate to provide the necessary information. Unable to comply with FSVP multiple regulatory requirements? ITB Holdings LLC could be your FSVP agent, while your company remains the importer of record responsible for all customs duties and other clearance-related fees. You certainly need this service if you are shipping to Amazon US warehouses, because FedEx, UPS, and DHL will expect you to provide a FSVP agent statement of consent. Otherwise, your shipment will be detained by the US Customs. Prior notice. Submit prior notice to the FDA before your food products are exported to the US. Is your company manufacturing, exporting, or importing FDA-regulated products? Contact ITB Holdings LLC at www.itbholdingsllc.com. Use the free live support chat available 24/7, including in foreign languages, for your convenience. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more valuable insights and updates. Hit the bell icon to receive notifications whenever we release new content. Until next time, stay safe, stay compliant, and stay tuned. See you next week.